What's up, y'all? How y'all doing? We just finished watching Speak No Evil 2024, and we about to talk about it. We watched Speak No Evil 2022 last week, correct?
A quick synopsis of the movie. If you haven't seen us cover the original Speak No Evil, that's gonna go up before this one, so check that out. We'll put the card somewhere around here so y'all can go check that out. This couple goes on a vacation. In this one, they go on vacation in Italy and they meet this other couple. And from the beginning, the couple is sort of testing boundaries with the one that they meet.
The protagonist couple is American. The antagonists, the other couple, are British.
British couple's name is Patrick, Patty, as they would call him. Kira is the wife, and Ant is the son. And then the protagonist couple, the Americans, the husband is Ben, the wife is Louisa, and the kid is Agnes. So kept some of the same names as the other movie. The first thing that we noticed as we were watching it was the first movie, the original movie. It was way more psychologically menacing. There were things that didn't seem right, but they were not overt. They rushed a lot of the offenses. So I've kind of listed the offenses the same way I did with the last one, and we're kind of going to go over them as we go through. So the first offense was during the vacation, they meet up with Ben, Louisa, and Agnes are going for lunch, and they end up running into Patrick and Kira. In the other movie, she had a doll.
It was like Nina.
And she had this plushie that he had to end up going and look for. And the new one, the doll's name is Hoppy. So she misplaces the doll, and he has to go kind of look for it in the city. When he comes back, they run into Patrick and Kira. The daughter, Agnes, wants to ride on the Vespa that he has.
She saw it and she's like, "Oh, that's really cool."
Yes.
And so Patty's like, "You want to ride?" And she's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Mom, Dad, can I?" And me and you discussed, you automatically like, no, because in this movie, much like the other one, the American couple, they're a little bit more passive. English couple is pushy. I would have said no. But he's like, "Yeah, sure, come on, jump on." And the girl sits right in front of him, right? And me and you automatically was like, okay, this is a little sus.
And this is going to play out for later on in the movie. It's important, and we didn't know it at the time. It wasn't part of the plot of the original movie, but it's going to be important because later on we see why. That's the first moment of pushing a boundary with them. Something to also note is that the doll, first movie, the doll was the daughter, she didn't want to lose her doll. But in this one, the daughter has panic attacks. So her not having her doll kind of panic attack.
Start scratching or hyperventilating. And the other one, she was just like, "Oh, my doll." And she was considerably younger too. She was definitely a smaller child. In this one, this girl's like a preteen, I want to say.
So the second offense I have is when they're at lunch, Kira asks Agnes if she wants dessert when they're having dinner. Now, it may not be a bad thing necessarily, but they just met and she's offering this child that she doesn't know dessert. And again, it may not be the worst thing, but much like the first movie, it's just a gradual progression of overstepping. It was almost like a test of okay, will I get away with this or whatever.
And they took it innocently enough. They were like, no. So we can kind of watch a sweet intake. But thank you though. Funny Easter egg. I mean, if you've seen the original one, you know that the main couple is Danish. The antagonist couple is Dutch. So in this movie, they had a Danish couple that the American couple didn't seem to like. I guess they were too friendly. And then when they came over, Patty, the English couple, Patty told some some vulgar joke, and they were like, "Well, okay, not eating with you guys." So they did what the Danish couple should have did in the first movie. Okay, we're gonna go sit over there.
They end up going back home. One of the things that stood out to us, because after they get home, they get this postcard from the couple saying "Hey, we had a great time. You guys should come visit us." In the original, the wife is pretty much against it right away. And then they end up having dinner with friends, and then that's kind of how they kind of ease into the idea of going. In this one, she's like, no, right away, but then kind of is like, well, we need this because apparently not having too much luck in the job. He's an author or something like that. So she's like, all right, you know what, let's go. And it was like a quick turnaround.
This is one of the things I didn't particularly like, because in the original, when he got home, they just shown this like mundane routine, how this guy like hates his life, and you didn't even get like any indication of that. But then, obviously the problems they had in this movie were a little different than in the other movie. And so I felt that's why one of the things I didn't like, and I thought they were way too easy to go vacation to some stranger's house. And like we said, like this is something that we said in the other video, like, Americans, we'd be like, going to your fucking house, I don't even know you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to stay at somebody's house that I barely fucking know. And like I said, I would think other Americans would be like that too. Like, no, I'm not going to fucking sleep with you. I don't know you. In the other movie, like I said, it was more of a culture thing as well, because they were eating, like Luis was like, nah, and he was like, yeah, maybe you're right. And then later on, they discussed it with their friends, and I was like, whatever, it would be rude to say no to that.
This plot is kind of rushed, and we find out later on why it was rushed.
See, the other movie had this foreboding, like the music, how everything was shot all the way up into them going. It was just like this kind of disturbing, like far shots, panning shots. The music, when he's doing things, how it just like, even though you see other people, you can only really like focus on him, and how he like in his own head is not there.
It was a lot of tone setting.
So at first, I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I wasn't feeling this movie at first.
He was like, why are they rushing this so much?
The other one was it was a slow burn.
They go to the house, and on one hand, Ant's room was much creepier than Abel's room. Much creepier. It was like an attic or something like that. But the bed that Kira made for Agnes was better than the bed, but it was still another boundary. When they were in Italy, they actually had a short conversation between Patty and Louisa about the fact that Louisa is a vegetarian, still eats fish. I think they even discussed that.
Once again, difference between the original. In the original, I think Louisa brought up that she was a vegetarian. In this movie, Patty noticed what she was eating and asked her she was a vegetarian. So it's almost like he was told this time.
Well, when they get there, he prepares, what do you call that, golden bird or some shit?
It was like a goose or a turkey, something like that.
Oh my God.
And he prepares it different from the first one. Ben actually offers to eat it when he initially offers it to Louisa. Patty is much pushier. What we noticed actually was that the first one was deeply like psychological. And like what you were saying earlier, they were setting the tone, and with the music, it was ominous. It was like, that kind of thing. This one was very American, crude.
In the original, when they're offering Louise the boar meat, he just stood there and had his hand out. Take it. This is the best part. I cooked it for you. And he's sitting there waiting for her to take it. But as here, he's actively walking right up to her, like about to put the fork right in her mouth, like eat it. I think that's a thing Americans don't like. And I'm not saying that other countries don't have this. Why he was always like invading other people's privacy, but for me that's a trick. And get your ass off of me. Stop touching me.
Stop touching me!
And look, it's James McAvoy. I'm sure plenty of women don't mind James McAvoy in their face.
Yeah, boy.
So Louisa ends up taking a piece of chicken, but she spits it out.
Yo, they worked together on that one. She spit it out, put it in her hand. He walked outside to take the trash. She gave him to it.
Was like, here, take this.
So there were moments in this movie where they were able to work together, and then there were other moments where Ben was just the most insufferable person, just whiny and not able to take control, and it was very annoying. So because of that though, Louisa kind of chastises him in the room. Like they get back to the room and Louisa's like, yo, and she's already feeling uneasy about this. Ben is on his way to Love Island with fucking Patty. Like he's like so enamored by Patty. From what they thought, like Patty was a doctor or is a doctor. Bjorn in the first one, it gave me the impression of being more hopeless than anything. In this one, Ben, in my opinion, was just selfish.
Bjorn looked at Patrick in his movie, and it's like he wanted to be like him. As where this guy, like you said, it looks like he didn't want to be alone with his, his wife. He just wanted to be somewhere else.
Luis is already questioning things, but Ben is like, it's gonna be fine. We're gonna have a good time. All is, well. Goes out to throw out the garbage. Another difference is Abel in the first one, pretty quiet. He was, he was younger. Ant was with the shits.
Ant opened his mouth, my tongue was called, hey, my neck, I can't talk. He was trying to tell him, and then he's like, Ant, what you? And Ant was like, shit, all right, I gotta go. Yeah, but this Ant, like you said, he about like 12, 13. Like, I think I'm gonna kill you, man.
The biggest difference between Ant and Abel is that Ant was like actively trying to save himself, save them, and also save himself.
Ant and the other one was just mute. He just didn't do nothing. This kid was making noises.
He was active, like he was not playing around. And a difference in this one too is that in this movie, they actually tell them about the tongue condition.
They go out to the woods, and there's like a little part where lighting a fire, pretty cool. The kids were kind of playing on this like swing, and Ant wasn't moving for whatever reason. It looked like Ant was just waiting for people not to look, so you could tell Agnes, like he was always waiting for them not to be around so he could say. But then there's a point where he won't move because I think he's trying to whisper something in her ear, and like Patty kind of yanked him around, and then, of course they're like, yeah, you don't need to do that. The way he kind of yoked him up wasn't too bad because he got kind of gave him a little hug afterwards. I think that's when they go home, and that's when Luis is like, yeah, I want to leave. These people ain't pleasant. Kira comes in and is like, hey, almost on cue, just like in the other movie. She pops in and it's like, hey, we're gonna have dinner. They all get dressed and they're getting ready to go. And they're like, they getting ready to bring Agnes. No, the kids, they're gonna stay here. And they're like, what you mean? Like, the moms was like, huh? I ain't gonna lie, they did the same thing they did in the last movie. They let some old stranger take care of the kid. But in this one, they gave him a sob story. Said he's a Syrian refugee and said he used to be a teacher. And he made this joke of, if there's any funky business, we'll have him deported, Of course, here we go to old selfish ass Ben. I just let him stay. Nigga, no, man. I don't know this man.
Useless.
They go to dinner. Patty's just driving crazy for no reason. It's like just to be a dick at this time, right? As where in the other one, that was after dinner and they were drunk. So they get there and they all sit down to eat. And I think that's when they start talking about the food. And then that's the same scene as the other one. But it was more of a debate this time. The Luis in the other movie kind of like shut the fuck up when she got pressed a little too much. Whereas this Luis wasn't backing down. She was showing who she was in this movie. Like, nah, no.
She wasn't playing either. I gotta give it to her. Like, she did a lot more things right, in my opinion, than the Luis in the first one. The dinner scene is pretty similar, with the exception of like earlier in the first version, the uncomfortable part was them like dancing and kind of getting loose that way. And this version, the way that they pushed the buttons was they simulated Kira, like, giving him fellatio under the table. They didn't actually do it. It looked like they were doing it. But what to me stood out during this dinner was, again, in the first one, we didn't see what happened at the house while they were gone. We see that Ant takes Agnes. Well, they're playing hide and seek with the babysitter. And so while he's looking for them, Ant takes Agnes into their room. In the room, there's a box of watches, and he turns over one of the watches, and it has like language and engraving, but then it has his name at the end, and she's kind of like, I don't know what you're trying to tell me.
Patrick kind of alluded that he hated his parent, that his father put their flaws on him and gave him new ones and stuff. And he had like, I don't know if he said like a little piece of poetry, but it got real uncomfortable because he was getting a little too intense and stuff at that point. So it let you know that he probably didn't have the best relationship with his parents growing up. And then Kira let it out that her parents are gone. So, you know what I'm saying? So, which comes back to play later on. Snaps to them paying dinner, which was fucking hilarious. Because in the other one, he's like, I got the bill. Like, he's like, hey, you want to help me with the tip? And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. And he just like gives him the ticket. And you don't see Patrick pulling out and then Bjorn is like, I'm paying for this? And in this one, so it was a little longer. In this one, he just hands him the bill. And he's like, oh, is this on me? Yeah, thanks. Walks out the door. I was like, yeah.
This is yet another difference of like the way that the first one was much more of a psychological was doing with Bjorn.
And I think that was my problem because I just like the slow kind of burn, psychological gaslighting, all that, how that was just piling on top of each other. And like you said, this one is definitely a little bit more American, but it's actual because it was just like boom, 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 boom. Patty in this one is just, oh, here, he's just rude, he invades your space, he does all this stuff. You would think they should have swapped it and that the polite couple should have been British and the murderous couple should have been American, in my opinion. Patrick from the Swedish movie, he always waited for you to do something or say something. He always put the ball in your court and he would wait for you to take the shot. And you didn't take the shot, then he would just like, okay. Patrick slash Patty is just creepy motherfucker looking in the window while they arguing.
And you pointed it out. You caught it. Like his face rolled up in the window.
In the other movie, they were having sex, a Danish movie. Shout out to both Louise in this for this thing. So they go to sleep, wake up. Louise goes looking for her long giraffe ass, go looking for the baby and sees that her child's not there. She, like you can see, she's a little panicked. She's looking around, going to Patty and Kira's room. They see Kara all hugged up with Agnes. And Louise was like, oh, hell no. She picked that baby up and she got in that room and she woke Ben up. We leaving. I was like, damn, yeah, now. When the sun come up, we gone. Same thing happens in this movie. They get driving, the bunny's gone. In this movie, like you said, instead of Agnes just crying and whining, but he wanted his daughter not to cry, and then they ended up getting caught up. Plus, he probably didn't really want to leave anyways. I did kind of like this anxiety situation, because for me, that makes more sense to go back. Your daughter starts scratching at her skin, she's hyper, really freaking out. That would make more sense to go back and get the bunny. So they go back, and in this one, in the original, they found the bunny under the chair. This one, Bunny was in the house. I think Aunt kept that bitch on purpose.
Aunt was not playing.
So in this one, the same thing happens. They talk to Patty, they talk to Kira / Karen. They make them feel guilty for leaving, ask them what did they do. They apologize, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, come on, we're gonna have fun, stay.
Ben and Patty go on a drive, and Patty starts serenading Ben, and Ben just looks like...
Didn't he look a little indifferent? But he didn't look like he was enjoying it, but Patty was just looking him in the eyes. Like, Patty looked like a tiger about to jump on some food, but he was singing to him so weird, man. I'd be like, can you stop looking at me like that?
The thing.
They're clearing, yeah.
Yeah, they're clearing, and they do the yelling at the top of their lungs, which...
He got a little homoerotic.
Patty was doing too much. He's grabbing on him and tugging him and grabbing his hair, and like, it was just so...
But he was exerting his will over him still.
Again, in this movie, Ben didn't come off like Bjorn did. Bjorn seemed helpless, hopeless, helpless, both. And for him to have that sort of release or be around someone who was more assertive and look up to him in some way made sense. It made sense for Bjorn to like want to like let loose in that way. Where with Ben, that wasn't the vibe with Ben.
He's just a bitch. He's just going along with this alpha male was doing. When they were screaming, the one that was letting out the rage was Patty. He was looking like the Hulk. Y'all know James McAvoy. If you ever seen Split, he looked like the Beast. And they had a weird little moment. Like I said, it didn't hit.
Beyond that, they end up going back to the house. It's the same similar type of scene where they're all cooking. This is when, and even in the first movie, they kind of started to ramp up a little bit on the more like overstepping of the boundaries. In this one, they just started to go. Agnes yells or says like, Mom, like, you know, calling her mother. And Kira turns around to Agnes and responds to what Agnes asked. Louise is responding. So it's like, all right, here we go. Fast forward, they're having their lunch.
Louise checked Kira for about telling her, like, stop telling my daughter what to do. Patrick, he tells her to apologize. And he starts like, he's like rubbing her back. And there's this tension there, but he's like rubbing her back. And I love James McAvoy. That man can act. And he's like rubbing her back and he's looking at her, and then you see her, she's like, oh shit, I just fucked up. Like she has this face like she's in trouble. Like he's on the verge of like popping. And so she like apologizes, of course. And he like asks, like, so what you gonna do, Louise? I'm like, oh, here we go. And he makes her, like, oh yeah, maybe I'll overreact. He's like, oh, good. And then he just pets back up. That's when the dance scenes happens. They get the kids get up. You know, her parents don't want to watch that shit. At least the husbands don't. Anyways, and so I'm joking, y'all. And so they start dancing. And I'm gonna be honest, Aunt was doing way better than Abel was, okay?
Yeah, like he was actually doing okay. They were doing a dancer. Where did you come from? Where did you go?
Patty going off, no, stop, do it again. No, do your feet like this. And then, of course, little girl gets freaked out. And then, no, she got to dance. And, like, Patty is way more aggressive physically, and his energy is just off the charts aggressive. There's a part where Aunt messes up and he throws a whole, like, glass at him. Just and it hits him. So again, we see Kira freaking out because you could tell when he goes rages out. And I was like, okay, I think something's up with this relationship because in the other movie, Karen of the Dutch couple, she didn't react when he freaked out. She was with the shits. She was totally with whatever he was doing. There was no aggression. In this one, she jumped and you would see a look to the side and I'm like, uh-oh, something's here because they don't show stuff like that if they're not gonna come back to it. And of course, he got called out for talking to the kid like that. And I guess he's like, he got a little drunk, he went to take a nap. So in the other movie, at this point, they're being weird again. They go to sleep. There's loud noises. This is when he finds out that the couple's a murderer, kill people, take kids. And then that's when they see Abel's dead. They try to escape. They get caught. They subsequently have their kid abducted, also maimed, and they're just stoned in a quarry, and they don't ever do anything to get themselves out of this situation. In this movie, Ant sneaks up there. Patrick is drunk. He's taking a little quick nap. He's able to get his keys from him. So then he gets Agnes to, like, they're throwing a football. And I love how he just kept throwing a little further, and then he unlocks this like barn area, opens this door, and that's when he showed the daughter that room with all the shoes and all the bags and all the jewelry and all those stuff. And he pulls out the photo item and he points at himself, and then he like goes to, and the kid, and then he like goes to the next one. He shows that same kid, and then he points at the next, the next kid, and then he like keeps showing that each kid from each photo is in the next photo, and then he shows himself again with his sticking his tongue out his mouth, and then the daughter was like, that's when it hit the door. She was like, holy fuck. This is one of the most mature type, I ain't gonna lie, like there's still some dumb choices that happen, but this is probably like the most like, oh shit, we gotta get the fuck about it. Ant was the MVP of this whole movie. Ant said, Aunt Jessica, get your phone out and take some pictures. You know what I'm saying? And she started taking pictures, and they get back out, and so the game. But he didn't even have to say it. They was looking at you, the game, right? She's like, I know what to do. And then that's when he goes back to give the keys to Pops, to put the keys back on Pops. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna hurt myself so I can get one of my parents separate from them. So she stabs her finger and then her leg and then gets her mom away.
This is just as a testament to her, like how she was thinking, because she ends up stabbing herself on her leg because she had a dress on because she wanted to make it seem like it was her first menstrual. But that was because she knew that they would have to go to the bathroom. And that was her way to isolate her parents. Pricked herself, made herself bleed, and then walked up to her mom and was like, and her mother don't know anything. So her mother's like, oh my God, don't worry, it's natural. We're going to go to the bathroom. And she shows her the pictures.
And mom, okay, yeah, we gotta go. We gotta get on out of here. They show dumbass Ben the picture. Well, what's going on?
Useless.
I just paused the movie. I was so upset. I'm like, Luis, can you slap this man? What you mean? You ain't see the same thing out there, stupid? We need to go. I think the only reason Ben saw the seriousness of the issue because how scared his wife and daughter was.
That's why they only have sex once a month. She probably got to walk them through the whole damn thing. Leave the bathroom and they're like, all right, we're kind of freaking out. She wants to be home. She wants to be home, please. They walk out to the kitchen. Kira's there. Patty's hanging up the phone. So you're like, oh, fuck.
Remember when they was in the bathroom, they kept checking. Y'all all right? Y'all like, yeah, we fine. Yeah, we fine. Kira ear was on the door. Oh, they whispering about something.
So they're all in the kitchen. They're like, all right, you want to leave? And they go through, this is kind of when they go through like this whole psychological thing of like, all right, fine, you can leave if you want to leave.
Really menacing at this point. And he's red as a beet too.
They go out to find they have a nail in their tire. Yeah, Patty's like, hey, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it for you. Of course, there's like saws and this and that. I feel like him going into the workshop was kind of like,
oh, it definitely was a test because he could have grabbed something.
Useless ass did. Oh, didn't do. He didn't grab nothing. They end up leaving and they end up fixing the tire. But guess what's fucking missing? That goddamn bunny, Hoppy.
But you know what's funny? At this point, the daughter is like, yeah, she's like, I'm not about to die. Fuck the bunny. Patty's like, oh, look where it is. She's like, you're missing anything? And then nigga start cracking his knuckles. I'm like, oh, he gonna punch somebody in the face. And he gets the ladder out, and that was a very tense scene. I was like, yo, on one hand I'm like, this is gonna be crazy if they kill Ben, but in the second he kind of deserve it.
Ben goes to climb up there. He gets the thing not without being scared, messing with the ladder and shit like that. They end up getting in the car. Patty has Ant by the neck. Initially Ben is like, hey, Ant, can you open up the gate for us? And I think that was their way to kind of get Ant away from them. Look, you don't get behind a serial killer that easily.
Patty was like, and they turned around. He stopped dead in his feet. He's like, came in, and he like loses the remote to open up. And I'm like, oh shit. This took me by surprise too. Right when they're driving out, because the boy had trouble swimming, toss him. He didn't like push him. He threw him by the neck, just tossed him. I was like, God damn. Like head first in the water. He's gasping for air. He's freaking out. And the door's like, oh, mommy, they're drowning. Okay, probably one of the few times he was actually heroic. He got out the car, he ran and saved that boy. But of course, Patty locked the gate behind him, held him at gunpoint.
End up all being held at gunpoint in the shed. Kira got a shotgun on Ben, Agnes, and then he's putting ketamine in a needle.
Also, he was making them transfer their funds into his $200K into their account. He was like, God damn. He had alluded that he picked them, and that's why he was talking to him, asking these questions. He's like, y'all not from here. You're not from here. You don't have a job, so nobody's gonna miss you. And you don't know, none of your neighbors know you either. So he's like, y'all are perfect. Before he got ready to get the ketamine ready, she asked him, why are you doing this to us? And he looked at them and said, because you let it.
Why are you doing this? Because you let us.
Now, we talked about how that line did not hit at all. Patrick from the original constantly never invaded their space. He did in certain scenes, but whenever it was scenes where they could leave or didn't want to be there, he was not physically imposing in their face. They could at any time wanted to turn around and leave versus like Patty all up in their space. At the very end, when they abducted the family, Patrick goes out to take a piss, leaves the keys in the car, 2 adults and 1 child versus a female in the back, and then one person could have jumped up in the driver's seat and drove away. He constantly letting them test, they could run away, they could run him down in the car, what have you, whatever, right? And so at the very end, once their daughter has been abducted, they're stark naked in a quarry, about to get stoned. They asked them, why are you doing this? And he said, because you let us. And that hit, and it didn't hit in this one. Even though he had his little test with them, he was all up in their shit all the time.
They had much more fight earlier on. I feel like everyone had a lot more fight in them than in that earlier movie. It made sense in the early one because obviously just not equipped to fight back. Like they didn't really have it in them. Where in this one, I never got that sense because Luis was kind of like pushing back from the beginning.
Agnes came in with the alley-oop. Of course, Ben is just standing there like, what will do with this ball? We're like, so this is when it goes, America. Right when they're getting that needle ready, Luis comes up with the ill upper slash, slashes Patty right in his face. A nice cut right next to like on the side of his eye. He's like, he goes down. And I'm happy because usually a lot of movies, them guys pop right back up like it's nothing. They knocked the gun out of Kira's hand. And this is when we get the revelation that Patrick abducted Kira at the age of Agnes, which I want to say is like around 12 or 13. So it's kind of being alluded that this dude might be a chomo.
This is why when we were referring to the beginning where Agnes is on the Vespa with him, that was weird. But then fast forward when the whole thing happens where they think she got her menstruation, he says, well, you're a woman now. You're not a little girl anymore.
He had even more interest in that at that point.
For Kira to say when he gets slashed and they all get up out of there, Kira's like, don't leave me here. He got me when I was the same age as Agnes, blah, blah, blah. And like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, then it kind of clicked with those other things.
I kind of felt bad for her at that point.
She could have been lying to you.
But it plays into what you had picked up earlier with her facial expressions and like the fact that she looked scared in certain moments. It's like, you've been an accomplice to this shit for too long, baby girl. Like, no, you can't go nowhere with nobody.
On one hand, the grooming, the psychological trauma and all this other stuff will kind of make her more obedient. But then I know what you're trying to say, but then you're a grown-ass woman and like you go in Italy on all these other places, there gotta be a time when you be like, help, like this guy's abducting me, you know what I'm saying? At the same time, people get Stockholm syndrome. They're just too scared to do anything because they don't want to die.
I believe that. I 100% can understand that this person has been literally groomed to do this, right? But at the same time, I ain't a therapist and I'm not the one to therapize you out of this shit.
Please, I don't have any time for any gossip now. Eh? Yes.
It turns into your typical killers trying to murder the family.
2 weeks.
is the MVP of this whole situation. She sprays his ass with acid.
Can we talk about
Okay.
Ben's last fumble?
Look, the restaurant guy, the guy, is apparently accomplice. Like in the first one, the babysitter was an accomplice. In this one, restaurant guy is the accomplice. I guess that's who Patty was on the phone with. He ends up pulling up as they're trying to pull out, popping his gun at him. So they end up running back into the house and trying to barricade themselves out. He lets out Patty and Kira, and they all try to hit the house from different angles.
And there's a point where like Ben is hiding. I'm thinking, oh, he gonna bust Mike head to the white meat. So he falls on the guy. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
So the week is he had one job.
I was hoping he was gonna die at this point. I'm like, let Louise just run away with the kids. Let Ben get taken out. I'm tired of him. He is a waste of skin.
Ends up having to come and help him because he ends up falling over. There's like a broken glass. And so Mike is about to shove his face into the broken glass. Louise again comes through and does what Ben was supposed to do and gets this guy with the other end of the hammer in the back of his head.
And so from there, because Patty's in pain because he got acid wash face, and he's telling tells Kara to go take care of it. So they're escaping. So I'll give Ben another point. Ben literally sacrificed one of his legs. So they ended up knocking down the ladder. So he jumps off. He's on the ladder. That's when Kara come out the window to get him and stuff. Right when I think was it right after Ben had like pulled up the girls first though. You think, oh man, she about to shoot one of them, and Louise hit her ass in the head with a shingle. She falls off, knocks the ladder down, and breaks her damn neck. And then so Ben, the manliest thing he could do is fall off a roof. And he ends up springing his leg and pushing the ladder back up. They get down and they do the dumbest thing in the world. They got a gun. They should stick together. Go back to the car, honey. What? No, you still where I can fucking see you. And so then they sitting there, they hear a noise. First I'm like, why don't y'all just run? But I guess, he got acid in his face. He may not be able to see. He might come around the corner and just get a couple shells in the face, right? So I don't blame him for waiting. They turn around and Patty got Agnes. And we like, you fucking fool. Puts the gun to the head. He sees Kira's dead. He calls out to her. She's not moving. And like, don't hurt her daughter. He's like, you think I'm hurting your daughter after you took my girl from her? Now she gonna replace her. And he's getting ready to pop them. That's when our little secret agent, the little sleep agent comes out. And just this fool ketamine, and he just he on cloud nine. And then Ben steps over and he's like, okay, Ben finally gonna be a motherfucking man. He gonna put this dangerous serial killing, girl grooming piece of crap down. But no, he can't do it. And I'm like, what are you doing? And Ben tripping, fall on the shotgun. Luis don't do it. She has the pistol, she don't do it. Who does it? And another movie, the protagonist dies by stoning. Well, Patty in this one died by stoning too. He got a giant cinder block smashed on his face over. And that was probably the most disturbing part, I guess, of the movie, as a child murdering a grown adult, and he just smashed his face into nothing. Then they drove away. The camera's kind of lingering on Ann. He starts crying. And I don't know if he's crying because he just murdered this man for all that torture and pain he had to do, or is it tears of joy? It might have been a little mix of everything.
And we talked about it like, damn, like, why would you leave that kid to have to do such a heinous thing?
Yeah, as soon as I see him straddling with that rock, I'd have stopped him, and I'd have just put a boot to his face if I needed it. You know what I'm saying? I would have did it. I wouldn't have let that child, because he's already been traumatized enough. Now he had to take a life on top of that. In a sense, it still kind of ends on a disturbing tone, but at least the family got away in this one. As in the other one, it was just terrible. Yeah. Also, fun fact, they didn't do this in the ending, so he wanted to add on to the ending of the 2002, where you find out that it's a whole village that meets people on vacation, brings them to that area, and then ends up stoning. But they would have shown that there are multiple groups of people doing this. I guess that kid's gonna be in a lot of therapy, or he's gonna either end up becoming Dexter.
Tonight's the night.
This movie was good. It was different.
I think I would rate it an 8. And the reason why is because the original, and maybe this is a bad thing, like having seen the original first, the original was so disturbing to me. This wasn't anything different in my opinion. Nice twist on the original. If let's say I had never seen the original, just saw this, I'd be like, oh, okay, like it was pretty standard. And so I guess because of that, that's why I'm giving it an 8. When at the end of it, when he said, because you allow me to, that shit hit so hard. And the way that they died was so like pitiful, so cruel, because these are like literally they were giving up no fight and they still off them. It was like, damn, like that shit is cruel. I like that they did do the twist where the boy was standing on business. He was not getting out of there. And I like the fact that the kids were more proactive. Daughter was also like we call a sleeper agent. Like she was standing on business. The moms was not playing. Like it was really good.
Probably gonna give it lower than you. I'm gonna give it a 7. That's not bad. For me, the original was a horror. A couple meeting you, inviting you to their house, you know, you go there and they slowly but surely push your boundaries until it gets to a point. There was a couple like really disturbing points from the original movie that they didn't do, like the shower scene with Luis was like really disturbing. And that they did the similar thing where the son is crying at night, but they did it way more in the other one. They also left it up to you to kind of like wonder like what the hell happened to this kid's tongue. I mean, it was the music, it was the shots, it was the actors, it was how uncomfortable everything was, it was how unsettling it was, how this guy just kept pushing their boundaries, watching them having sex. The way Bjorn didn't do anything. I think the American Louise put a way more of a stink about things than the Danish Louise. Now this movie was more of a thriller. Like I said, a lot of that stuff they did that I was talking about in the original, they kind of like passed through. Not gonna, shout out to James McAvoy. He did wonderful, but like he was more menacing. So he just looked like a physically imposing versus Patrick from the other one, who was bigger than Bjorn and in better shape, but he never imposed himself physically on either of the couple, as where Patty was constantly touching Louise, like when he was massaging the neck. Having the kid ride on the bike in the front, he was always grabbing Ben and like jerking him around. It was that one side when they yelled at the hill was so weird, the way he was just jerking him around and stuff. And like even though they hit some of those same story beats, and I'm happy that they did it. Aunt being proactive, then Agnes being activated, Louise being activated, Ben being a piece of crap. He was probably the only one that annoyed the shit out of me. The added fact that Hera was an actual victim as well, added to things I like about it. Even though it was entertaining, it fell into that American, turned into like a slasher flick in a sense, you know what I'm saying? Like we got to fight Jason off or whatever, and everybody gets away, like nobody really got hurt. I mean, outside of Ben hurting his leg, nobody got cut or beat up or stabbed, nothing like that. Because I felt like a lot of things that the other one took its time with, they kind of rushed. If I had only one movie to pick, I would have tell you to watch the Danish one. You never know, we might even feel different about the movie if we saw this one first, you know what I'm saying? Either way, I'm not mad at the remake. It does what American usually does things that's not necessary or need to be made, but I'm not mad at it for being made. So don't be a hater. Like the stream, hit that sub, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this. All right, y'all, later.
All right, y'all later.